We stay with the topic of heritage, culture and languages, and Zinhle Zulu is an illustrator and a storyteller using her heritage and her craft in a way that she hopes will promote literacy. She creates pictures and stories for children that pay tribute to Zulu oral history. Her goal is to show kids stories that they can relate to, and through doing this to get them to take an interest in reading. Zinhle joins us in studio now. Good afternoon to you, Zinhle.
Hi there, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So as a start, just sort of out of my own interest, how did you get into illustrating? I can imagine telling a black parent saying that, you know, I'm going into illustrating, this is what I want to do with my life. Right. And the answer or response sort of being, so you want to draw for a living. So, you know, how did that come about?
No, that came about. It was a very difficult process explaining. I mean, to this day, it's still a difficult process explaining to them what I do. But yeah. I started out by being kind of an academic student, but having this huge love for art, and I thought that I would become like a fine artist or something. Yeah. And then I came onto the whole illustration scene after high school. Yeah. And I studied graphic design and illustration after high school, and that's how it kind of started. All right. So, yeah.
I know you've always had an interest in literacy, but, yes, you know, young people like yourselves are slowly moving away from, you know, what we consider as literacy, as you see people sort of being more onto their phones and social media and all of that. So it's not often that you'll sort of see, you know, a young person holding a book and all of that. How do you promote literacy as you're attempting to do in this era, in this world of, you know, fast, you know, knowledge, sort of, you know, reading information quickly on Twitter or whatever it is? How do you get, you know, young people to say, okay, I actually want to sit down, read a book, and, you know, how do you get it to be interesting?
Well, I think that illustration is a really good access point in making reading material really interesting and engaging. And I think that as a generation, we're headed towards a more globalized culture, and we have to compete with various entertainment resources that are out there and make reading material really interesting. So I think that our responsibility, especially as creatives, is to incorporate some sort of social responsibility regarding education, and also to consider the fact that there's many various forms of literacy as technology progresses, like technological literacy, digital literacy, and so on. We're growing towards that avenue.
So tell me about the creative space in South Africa. I mean, you know, if I look at, you know, trends in America, for example, there's a lot of space to grow for creatives. Do you think that there is that? I mean, I see a lot of creatives in South Africa, but is there enough space for you not only to grow, but to flourish and to actually make, you know, a decent living in that creative space? What's your analysis of the creative space in our country?
Well, right now, I think that creatives in our country have to be multi-talented and multifaceted. Yeah. We have to adapt to different surroundings and do as much as possible, because we're still at a stage where it's still a new ground to, you know, make waves and kind of guide the new creatives that come into the sphere and show them that this is what's possible. For instance, staying in one box is no longer an option. Right. And I saw that at a young age, and I realized that I have to kind of make my way in different platforms within illustration, because it's still such a young and growing career, but it has a lot of potential for growth, and I think that it is possible to maintain, you know, a career in illustration.
And how do you sort of dispel some of the stereotypes and myths about creatives? I know that, you know, if I am to picture as an old person what a creative does, is sitting somewhere having a bong or something of the sort in the corner there, thinking about, you know, what next creative thing to do. How do you dispel those nasty sort of stereotypes that one would have of creatives?
No, it's been a challenge, and I mean, for me, I grew up with a lot of structure in my household, a lot of strictness. So, for instance, my process is far more different than most people's, and I think every person has a unique process. And given my own process, I don't fit into the stereotype. And I think just living through that and people realizing, oh, that's not how you do things, and slowly will grow out of the stereotype.
And I find it actually quite funny that a lot of the creatives I talk to or meet or that I'm friends with, they come from very strict backgrounds. Do you guys want to sort of fight the strict background that you were brought up in, and that's how you get into this, I suppose one could say, crazy world? How do you sort of jump from being in this sort of secluded, sort of closed environment and sort of go into your own sort of thing? Does that influence what you ultimately get into?
A lot, definitely. I think it also influences your perspective on things, because limitations are often a source of inspiration for creativity generally.
Yeah.
So when you grow up with a lot of limitations, you find creative solutions, and applying that kind of perspective into what I do and what I create has been quite beneficial, ironically.
Yeah. Now, talk to us about the importance. Now, you're Zulu, you're born in KZN, the importance of incorporating Zulu in your work. I mean, a lot of people who move, from where they were, KZN or whatever it is, coming to Joburg, sometimes people can sort of try to forget about, where they come from and all of that. And for you to kind of hold on so much, and it's something that I respect so much about the Zulu culture, that even, in Joburg, we're holding on to your culture. Just talk to us about how you sort of incorporate that into your work and the importance for you as a person.
Well, for me as a person, and just generally analyzing Zulu culture in my time, I've realized that the most grounding component of it is unity. Even with Shaka Zulu, trying to unify the different clans in our nation. And I think that foundation carries through to my work. And I realize that, holding on to our culture as we become more globalized and we're becoming hybrids in society and becoming more contemporary and influenced by the Western, outlook on life, I think that it's important to maintain particularity in this universality that we're living in, and representing ourselves as cultures, particular different cultures in this diverse nation, kind of highlights the reason that we're all so similar, even though we're all so different. So I think that's kind of what I'm trying to carry and emulate, and I hope to inspire all the different cultures within South Africa to kind of do the same, so that we can reach an ideal.
Yeah, and I know my team is telling me to wrap up, but I can't get my eyes off your tattoos there. And I know tattoos are sometimes very personal to people, but I see you've even incorporate. Can our cameraman maybe zoom in somewhere there? If they can maybe move in onto her tattoos there. But it's also, tribal, very much looks very influenced by the Zulu culture. Are you able to explain to us a little bit what's going on there? I absolutely love. I'm such a tattoo fan, but look at the job I do. They won't like that too much on me.
This is just a combination of the pride of my heritage mixed with different tribal patterns and just a reminder of my values written here, my mom's name. And it's kind of on me now permanently. It's a reminder that this is what I do it for, and my culture is within me, whether I like it or not.
I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Zinhle, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you for joining us here on It's Very Dope on SA today. I really enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's Zinhle Zulu. She's an illustrator and working very hard to preserve Zulu culture and language preservation. That sort of brings an end to our chat on heritage then in this hour. Let's take a short break. Do stay with SA Today.